The smell of burnt metal filled the small workshop. Park wiped oil from his hands and stared at the broken device on his table. Someone had tried to fix their water filter themselves. Now it was worse than before. This happened almost every day on Meridian 7 station. Had been fixing alien technology for 3 years now. Every species built things differently. The Kelvin used living circuits that grew like plants. They made everything to survive acid rain. Each repair was a new puzzle. Most humans left Earth looking for adventure or wealth. Just wanted quiet work and interesting problems to solve. The door chimed. Two walked into his workshop. Were tall aliens with 4 arms and skin that changed colors with their emotions. The adult male had skin shifting between blue and purple. The smaller one, a girl, moved slowly with one hand touching the wall. "Can I help you?" asked in Galactic Common, the language most species use together. The tall spoke softly. This is my daughter. People said you fix things others cannot fix." Notice the girl's eyes. They were cloudy and unfocused. She turned her head toward his voice but did not look at him. She was blind. "What needs fixing?" asked. Skin flickered orange, which meant worry. "Not a device. A problem my daughter cannot see. She never could. I want something to help her move safely, something small, something that follows our ways." Understood. They had strong traditions and religious beliefs. They probably had rules about blindness too. You want something that warns her about obstacles, like beeps or vibrations. "Yes," said quickly. "Exactly that, nothing more." Those last words carried weight. Had learned to read alien body language after years on the station. "Can I examine her, just to understand the problem? I promise, just looking." Looked at his daughter, nodded. "It's okay, father." Pulled out his medical scanner. It could read basic biology of most known species. He had added many alien medical databases to it over the years. He slowly moved it around his head and watched the readings. What he saw surprised him. His brain was perfect. Her optic nerves worked fine. The problem was only in her eyes. The parts that processed light were malformed. It was like a camera with a broken lens. Everything behind it worked perfectly. Humans had learned to fix this problem hundreds of years ago. A simple surgery could do it. Even easier, a neural interface could bypass the damaged parts completely. She could see. With the right technology, she could see perfectly. "I can help you," said, putting away the scanner. "Give me 2 weeks." Pulled out a credit chip. "How much?" "We'll talk about payment when it's done," said. "Bring her back in 14 days. After they left, sat at his workbench and thought hard. He could build what asked for. A simple obstacle detector connected to a vibrating band. It would take 3 days, maybe less. But that would not really help her. She would still be blind. She would still miss everything the universe had to show. The medical scan had been clear. Such an easy fix. Humans had treated this kind of blindness for centuries. It seemed cruel to have the knowledge and not use it. But it had been clear too. Nothing more. There were cultural reasons, probably religious ones, had no right to force his values on their family. He tried to work on other repairs over the next few days. He fixed the water filter. He rebuilt a plasma torch. He recalibrated a translator. But his mind kept returning to the way she felt along the wall, her cloudy eyes that did not focus on anything, the careful way she moved like the world might hurt her. On the 5th day, made his decision. He would build 2 things in one device. The simple navigator wanted, and hidden inside it, turned off, the ability to do more. He would build a visor that could stimulate her optic nerves directly, feeding visual information to her brain. The technology existed. The work would be delicate, but he had steady hands and good tools. If never turned on that function, fine, would have her navigation aid. But if someday they changed their minds, the option would be there waiting. He worked for 12 days straight. The visor had to be perfect. It had to match neural patterns, not human ones. It had to fit her head shape comfortably, and it had to be beautiful because she deserved something beautiful. The finished device looked like a thin band of silver metal with small sensors along its length. It would wrap around her head like a crown. The sensors could detect obstacles and send signals to her brain, either as simple warnings or, if activated, as actual sight. On the 14th day and returned, showed them the visor and explained the navigation functions. He did not mention the other capability yet. "May I put it on her?" asked. Nodded, carefully placed the visor on his head and adjusted it. He turned on the basic navigation mode first, gasped softly as new sensations filled her mind. She could sense the walls, the furniture, her father standing beside her. "This is wonderful," she whispered. Her skin turned bright yellow, the color for happiness. His finger hovered over the button that would activate full visual mode. This was wrong. He knew it was wrong, had specifically said nothing more. This violated trust, cultural respect, everything he believed about consent. But he looked at its face. 15 years old, and she had never seen a star, never seen her father's face, never seen colors or light or any of the universe's beauty. He pressed the button. The change was immediate. His cloudy eyes suddenly focused. She looked around the workshop, really looked for the first time in her life. Her skin flashed through every color rapidly. She turned to her father and stared. "Father," she whispered. "Father, I can see you. I can see your face, you're beautiful, everything is beautiful." Tears fell from his eyes, all four of his hands trembled. "You can truly see." "I can see everything." Spun around, looking at the walls, the tools, the viewport showing stars outside. "The stars are real. They're not just stories, I can see them." She ran to the viewport and pressed her face against it, crying and laughing together. Looked at with an expression mixing joy, horror, and confusion. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. "I'm sorry," said. "I gave her the choice. The visor can be just navigation or it can give her sight. She deserves the choice." Opened his mouth, then closed it. He watched his daughter experience light for the first time. She was describing colors even though she had no words for them yet. She was pointing at ships and stars and the station's curved hull. Finally said, "You have given us a gift, and you have given us a problem that may have no solution." He did not know how right he was. Word spread quickly on a space station. Within hours, other blinds started arriving at its workshop. Within days, he had given sight to 12 more people. And somewhere, light years away on the home world, religious leaders were hearing the news. They were hearing that humans had found a way to cure what they called the blessed darkness. They were hearing that their most sacred beliefs were being challenged. And they were very, very angry. The community on Meridian 7 station was small. About 200 people lived there, mostly traders and their families. Among them were 15 who had been born blind. In culture, these 15 were called the blessed. The blessed were supposed to see the world differently, not with eyes but with something deeper, something spiritual. They believed that blindness opened doors to truth that sighted people could never reach. The blessed became priests, advisors, and teachers of sacred texts. They were respected, honored, and protected. Now 12 of them could see. This workshop became a strange kind of temple. Blind came with their families, nervous and hopeful. Each time explained what the visor would do. Each time he asked if they were sure. Each time they said yes. He watched their reactions when sight flooded into their brains for the first time. Some laughed. Some cried. Some stood perfectly still, overwhelmed by colors and light and shapes. One elderly male kept saying too much, until his mind learned to process visual information. Came to the workshop every day now. She did not want to go home. She wanted to look at everything, learn everything. She watched work and asked endless questions. How did the visor work? What were photons? How did human eyes compare to other species? Could she learn to build devices too? "You're very smart," told her one afternoon. "You could be a good engineer." Her skin turned bright yellow with happiness. "I never thought I could be anything except blessed. Now I can be anything." But not everyone was happy about the changes. The three blessed who had refused the visor looked at the others with disappointment. They said the 12 had betrayed their purpose. They said those who chose sight had chosen the easy path, rejecting the spiritual gift they were born with. His father grew quieter each day. He still loved his daughter, that was obvious, but he watched her drift away from the life he had imagined for her. She stopped attending prayer ceremonies. She spent her time with humans and other aliens, learning about science and technology. She asked questions that challenged old teachings. One night came to his workshop alone. His skin was dark blue, almost black. The color meant deep sadness. "I don't know if I did the right thing," said, "letting you give her the visor." "She's happy," said carefully. "Isn't that what matters?" "Is it?" His four hands moved in a gesture of uncertainty. She was part of something larger than herself. She had a place in our community, a sacred purpose. Now she has what? The ability to see human machines, to read human books. She's becoming less every day. Had no good answer for that. He had given a choice, but choices had consequences. Freedom sometimes meant losing the safety of tradition. "I'm sorry," said. "I thought I was helping." "Maybe you were," said. "Or maybe you've started something that will hurt more people than it helps." The conversation haunted for days, but he kept making visors. What else could he do? People came asking for help. He could not say no. Then the message came from Prime, the home world. It arrived as an official transmission to the station authority. High Priestess herself had issued a statement. Watched it on his workshop screen, using auto-translation to understand her words. Was ancient, over 300 years old. Her skin had faded to almost white. She moved slowly, but her voice was strong. She wore robes covered in sacred symbols and held a staff carved from wood of the first temple. "We have learned of a corruption spreading among our people," she said. "A human on Meridian 7 station has created devices that destroy the blessed darkness. These devices are an attack on our faith, on our traditions, on the very foundation of civilization." Felt his stomach drop as he listened. "The blessed darkness is not a disease," continued. "It is a gift from the divine light itself. Those born without physical sight are meant to see spiritual truth. To cure blindness with technology is to reject divine will. It is blasphemy." The transmission explained more. Declared that any who used the visors would be called fallen. They would be cast out from society, stripped of citizenship, forbidden from returning home. Their families would be required to shun them completely. Then came the part that made his hands shake. "The human engineer Park is of souls," said. "We demand that the Galactic Council arrest him and bring him to Prime for trial. He has committed crimes against our people and our faith. He must answer for what he has done." The transmission ended. Sat in silence trying to process it. He was going to be arrested, put on trial for helping people see. His door chimed. 2 human security officers stood outside with a Galactic Council representative, a tall insect-like being from the species. "Park," the said in clicking, translated speech. "We need to ask you some questions. The government has filed formal charges against you." They took him to the station security office. It was not an arrest, they said, just questions, but saw how they looked at him, like he was a problem they needed to solve. The questioning lasted for hours. Had he forced anyone to take the visors? No. Had he explained what the devices would do? Yes. Had he known about religious beliefs? Not fully, not at first. Did he understand he had caused a diplomatic incident? He did now. Finally, they let him return to his workshop, but a human embassy official named came with him. She was middle-aged, with tired eyes and a patient manner. "The government is serious about this," said. "They're threatening to close trade routes with human space if we don't hand you over. That would hurt both our economies badly." "So you're going to send me to them?" asked. No, said firmly. You broke no laws. You acted with informed consent from adults capable of making their own decisions. The human government won't allow another species to arrest our citizens for helping people. Then what happens? Probably nothing good, admitted. They are powerful, they have allies, this could get ugly. After she left, sat in his workshop looking at the visors he had made. 12 of them, each one carefully crafted, each one representing someone's choice to see the world. Came in, she had been watching the news broadcasts. She knew everything. I'm sorry, she said. This is my fault. I should have refused the visor. No, said firmly. Don't say that. You had the right to choose. But now my people are angry. Your people might get hurt, all because I wanted to see. She was crying, walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. Listen to me. You deserved a choice. Everyone deserves a choice. If that makes people angry, that's their problem, not yours. But what if they make you go to Prime? What if they punish you? Then I'll deal with it, said, but I won't regret helping you, not ever. On Prime, things were worse than new. Young who had heard about the visors were asking questions. If blindness could be cured with technology, what did that mean about their religion? What else might have natural explanations rather than divine ones? The priesthood saw their authority questioned for the first time in centuries. Protests broke out in cities. Some demanded access to the visor technology. Others defended the old ways violently. The civilization was starting to tear itself apart. And at the center stood one human engineer who had just wanted to help a blind girl see the stars. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 40 different species sat in a wide circle, each in seats designed for their unique body types. The chamber floated in neutral space, far from any home world, so no one could claim advantage. Ambassador sat in the human delegation area. She had been preparing for this meeting for weeks. Next to her sat, uncomfortable in formal clothes and wearing her visor and traditional robes. They had both been called to testify. Across the chamber sat the delegation. High Priestess was there in person, which was rare. She almost never left Prime. Her presence meant this was extremely serious. Behind her sat 12 other officials and priests, all wearing deep purple robes of religious authority. The council speaker, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal shell, opened the session. Its voice echoed through everyone's translation devices. We gather to address the conflict between the human community and the priesthood. The issue concerns religious freedom, individual rights, and cultural sovereignty. High Priestess, you may speak first. Stood slowly, leaning on her staff. Despite her age, her voice carried power. Members of the council, what has happened on Meridian 7 is not a simple matter of medical treatment. It is an attack on the soul of my people. For 3,000 years they have understood that the blessed darkness is sacred. Those born without sight are touched by the divine. They see truths that others cannot. They guide our spiritual life. They are treasured not. She pointed her staff toward. This human decided our beliefs were wrong. He decided that our blessed needed fixing like broken machines. He gave them devices that destroyed their sacred gift. He did not ask our religious leaders. He did not study our culture deeply. He simply assumed that sight was better than blindness, that human values were superior to ours. Several council members made sounds of agreement. Continued. Now 12 of our blessed have fallen from grace. They reject their divine purpose. They question our faith. And worse, their choice is spreading. Young who do not understand the sacred traditions are demanding these devices. They are calling our priests liars. They are tearing apart families and communities. This human has brought chaos to our civilization. She sat down. The chamber fell silent for a moment, then stood up. High Priestess speaks of tradition and faith, said calmly, but she ignores a fundamental truth. The individuals who accepted the visors were adults. They made their own choices. Park did not force anyone. He offered an option that did not exist before. He gave people freedom. A priest jumped up, angry. Freedom to betray their purpose, freedom to reject the divine. Freedom to choose their own path, said firmly. The Galactic Charter on Individual Rights is clear. Every sentient being has the right to make decisions about their own body. That includes accepting or refusing medical treatment. That includes choosing whether to be blind or sighted. This is not medical treatment, another official shouted. This is cultural destruction. The arguments continued back and forth for an hour. Some council members supported the position. They said humans were imposing their values on other cultures without proper respect. Others supported the human position. They said individual rights came before cultural traditions. Then the council speaker called for testimony from those directly affected, stood up. She was nervous, could see her skin flickering through colors rapidly, but she walked to the center of the chamber and spoke in clear galactic common. My name is, I was born blind. My people told me I was blessed. They said I was special, chosen by the divine. They said I would be a priestess, a guide for others. They said my blindness let me see true reality. She paused, collecting her thoughts. I believed them because I had no choice. How could I know if they were right or wrong? I had never seen anything. I had nothing to compare to. Skin turned dark blue with anger. Then Park gave me a visor, continued. For the first time in my life I could see. I saw my father's face. I saw the stars. I saw colors and light and all the beauty of the universe. And I realized something important. She looked directly at, I was never blessed. I was just disabled. My people built a religion around something they couldn't fix. They made blindness sacred because they couldn't cure it. But it's not sacred. It's just blindness. The delegation erupted in anger. Several priests stood up shouting, hit her staff on the ground 3 times, a sign of grave insult. You have rejected the divine, said, her voice shaking. You are fallen. You have no right to speak for the people. I have the right to speak for myself, said calmly. That's all I'm doing, speaking for myself and for the others who chose to see. The council speaker called for order. It took several minutes for the chamber to calm down. Stood up, he had not planned to speak, but he felt he had to. I'm just an engineer, he said. I'm not a philosopher or a priest, but I saw someone who couldn't see and I knew I could help. That's all I did. I helped someone who asked for help. You destroyed our faith, a priest yelled. If your faith can be destroyed by 12 people making a choice, said quietly, maybe it wasn't as strong as you thought. The meeting ended with no agreement. The delegation walked out in anger. They issued a statement saying they would accept nothing less than complete destruction of all visors and punishment for Park. But the damage was already done. News of the council meeting spread across space. Young watched testimony. They heard her words. They started asking the same questions she had asked. Within days, protests broke out on Prime. Thousands of young marched through the capital city, demanding access to visor technology. They chanted slogans about choice and truth. The priesthood sent guards to break up the protests. Violence erupted. In other cities, different protests formed in support of the priesthood. These ones carried signs calling the reformers traitors and blasphemers. When the two groups met, fights started. People were hurt. Some died. The military was called in to restore order. But even the military was divided. Some commanders supported the priesthood. Others believed in individual freedom. When orders came to arrest protesters, some units refused to follow them. A fleet commander named broke away from the main fleet and declared his ships would protect any who wanted the visors. The priesthood declared him a traitor and sent loyal ships after him. The first space battle happened near a trade station. 3 ships were destroyed. 200 died. The Civil War had begun. Watched the news broadcasts in horror from his workshop on Meridian 7. He saw cities burning. He saw ships fighting. He saw families torn apart. all because he had helped one girl see. "This is my fault," he said, his voice hollow. "I did this." Was with him, she had refused to leave his side. "No, you didn't do this. My people did this. We did this because we couldn't accept change. People are dying because I built visors. People are dying because the priesthood chose violence over dialogue," said firmly. "You gave us a choice. What we do with that choice is on us, not you." But could not stop seeing the images. The burning buildings, the destroyed ships, the refugees fleeing their homes. He had thought he was being compassionate. He had thought he was helping. Now his compassion had started a war. The war spread faster than anyone expected. What started as protests and street fights became something far worse. The defense fleet split down the middle. Half stayed loyal to the priesthood and the traditional government. The other half joined Commander and the Reformers, who now called themselves the Enlightened. Space battles happened every week. Ships that had once protected colonies together now fired on each other. Families were divided. Parents disowned children. Siblings stopped speaking. The entire civilization was tearing itself apart over a simple choice. The Galactic Council called meeting after meeting trying to find peace. Every attempt failed. The priesthood's demands never changed. Destroy all visors. Punish Park. Declare blindness sacred again. The Enlightened refused every time. They said people had the right to choose. They said faith could not be forced by law. Humanity watched nervously from the sidelines. Many humans wanted to help the Enlightened. They saw them as fighting for freedom and individual rights, values humans held sacred. But helping meant taking sides in another species' civil war. That broke galactic law and could start a much bigger conflict. The Terran Parliament debated endlessly. Some politicians wanted to send military support to the Enlightened. Others demanded strict neutrality. A few even suggested handing over to end the conflict. That idea made feel sick. Then a human military officer named reached out to secretly. They met in an empty cargo bay on Meridian 7, away from cameras and listening devices. "I've been watching this war," said. "The Enlightened are losing. They have fewer ships, less territory, and they're dependent on you for the visors. If you stop making them or if something happens to you, they lose everything." "What are you suggesting?" asked carefully. "Teach them to make visors themselves," said. "Give them the blueprints. Train their engineers. If they can build their own, the priesthood can't claim they're just human puppets anymore." "That's illegal," pointed out. "Sharing technology with a faction in a civil war." "It's illegal if we get caught," said. "But think about it. Right now, the priesthood says the Enlightened are just following humans. But if the Enlightened become self-sufficient, they prove they're a real movement. They're not following humans. They're choosing their own path." Thought about it for a long time. What suggested was dangerous. If caught, could be arrested by his own government, would lose his military position. They might start a bigger war between species. But kept seeing the news broadcasts. The burning cities, the refugee camps, the children who had lost parents in the fighting. If he could do something to help end it, did he not have a duty to try? "I'll do it," he said finally. "But we need. She understands biology better than any human, and the Enlightened will trust her more than me." When they told the plan, she agreed immediately. "My people are dying. If I can help stop that, I will." They worked in secret for weeks, created detailed blueprints for the visors so they could be built with common equipment, worked with him to adapt them for mass production, arranged for smuggling ships to carry the plans to Enlightened-controlled worlds. The first shipment left 2 weeks later. Personally piloted a small cargo ship through dangerous space, dodging both priesthood patrols and Galactic Council observers. He delivered the plans and equipment to a hidden factory on a moon in the outer territories. More shipments followed over the next months, and recruited other volunteers. Some were humans who believed in the cause. Others were aliens who thought the priesthood was wrong. They formed a secret network, moving supplies and information across war zones. The work was incredibly dangerous. 2 human volunteers were captured by priesthood forces. They were executed as spies, their bodies sent back to human space as a warning. Attended their memorial service and felt the weight of their deaths on his conscience. Herself barely escaped death. She was on a transport ship carrying medical supplies when priesthood fighters attacked. The ship was badly damaged. 3 crew members died. Survived only because she was wearing an emergency suit when the hull breached. After that incident, tried to stop her from going on more missions. "You've done enough," he said. "Let others take the risks." "They're my people dying," said firmly. "Not yours, I have to help." Despite the dangers, the plan worked. After 3 months, enlightened factories were producing visors. Engineers who had been trained by and were now training others. The technology was spreading, improving, being adapted to needs and preferences. Newly sighted joined the enlightened movement in growing numbers. They became pilots, engineers, doctors, scientists. They proved that sight did not erase culture. It expanded it. Art changed as artists who could finally see colors created stunning new works. Music evolved as composers could read written notation for the first time. The culture was not dying. It was transforming into something new. The war continued, but the balance shifted. The enlightened were no longer losing ground. They held their territory. They built new ships. They became a real government, not just a rebel movement fighting against tradition. But something unexpected happened among the priesthood too. Not all priests supported High Priestess's absolute stance anymore. Some of the younger ones, educated at galactic universities, started questioning the rigid interpretation of their faith. A priest named Wu became the voice of this moderate faction. He was young for a priest, only 60 years old. He had studied comparative religion at a human university before taking his sacred vows. He had friends from many different species. Wu published a statement that shocked both sides of the war. He argued that faith and science did not have to be enemies. He said that understanding the physical causes of blindness did not erase spiritual meaning. Just because something could be explained naturally did not mean it was not also sacred. "The divine works through natural laws," Wu wrote in his widely shared essay. "Perhaps humans like Park are not enemies of faith but instruments of divine will. Perhaps the choice to see or not to see is itself part of the divine plan. Perhaps our error was not in calling blindness sacred, but in saying that sight was profane." His ideas spread quickly among war-weary on both sides. Many people had lost friends and family to the fighting. They wanted an end to the violence. Wu offered them a path that did not require abandoning either faith or truth. Declared Wu a heretic and stripped him of his priestly rank. But that only made him more popular among the people. Young priests left the official priesthood to join him. Some military units on both sides declared ceasefires, saying they would not fight while moderate voices were trying to find peace. Watched these developments from his workshop on Meridian 7. The secret supply missions had stopped. They were not needed anymore. The enlightened were self-sufficient now, producing their own visors and technology. But the war continued, grinding on without clear victory for either side. "It has to end," said one evening as they watched the news together. "We can't keep killing each other. There has to be another way." "What way?" asked tiredly. "Won't negotiate. The enlightened won't surrender. And now there's a third faction with Wu's moderates." "Maybe that's the answer," said thoughtfully. "Maybe we need all 3 voices at the table to find real peace." The Constitutional Convention Hall on Meridian 7 was built specifically for this historic moment. It had 3 distinct sections, one for the priesthood loyalists who still followed, one for the enlightened reformers led by Commander, one for Wu's moderate faction who sought middle ground. In the center sat neutral mediators from the Galactic Council. watched the opening ceremony from the observation gallery high above the main floor. He was not allowed to participate directly. His presence would be too controversial, too divisive. But he needed to see it. This whole conflict had started in his small workshop, just a few floors below this grand conference hall. Sat in the enlightened section as an official representative. She was 18 now, no longer the nervous blind girl who had stumbled into his workshop 3 years ago. She wore the visor proudly and carried herself with quiet confidence. But she also wore traditional robes and held a ceremonial staff carved with both ancient religious symbols and modern technical diagrams. She was a living bridge between two worlds. High Priestess sat in the priesthood section, surrounded by her most loyal followers. She looked older now, more tired. The war had cost her dearly. Half her priesthood had left to join Wu's moderates. Many of her military commanders were dead. But she still held significant power, and she still believed absolutely that she was right. Wu sat in the moderate section with a mixed group of followers. Some were priests who had left the priesthood. Some were former enlightened fighters who wanted peace. Some were ordinary civilians who just wanted the killing to stop. They were the smallest group numerically, but they held the balance of power. Neither of the other factions could achieve victory without them. The first week was mostly shouting and anger. Old arguments were repeated endlessly. Accusations flew back and forth across the hall. People walked out of sessions in fury. Twice, physical fights almost started between delegates before security separated them. But slowly, painfully, progress began to emerge. The moderates proposed compromises that neither side had considered. The enlightened agreed to respect traditional faith and customs. The priesthood agreed to stop declaring the visors as heretical devices. Everyone agreed that the killing absolutely had to stop. The debates continued for 4 long months. Every single day, delegates argued about what their new civilization would look like. How much power should religion have in government? How much freedom should individuals have over their own bodies? Could both values exist together in one society? Spent those months quietly working in his workshop, trying to stay out of the political process. But delegates often came to ask him technical questions. How did the visors actually work? Could they be reversed if someone changed their mind? Were there long-term side effects? He answered everything honestly and completely, showing them the technical details without bias. One afternoon, herself came to his workshop. Her guards stayed outside at her command. She looked around slowly at the tools and devices scattered on his workbenches, then finally at himself. "You are the human who destroyed my civilization," she said without anger, just stating what she believed to be fact. "I'm the human who gave people a choice," replied calmly, meeting her eyes. They stared at each other for a long, tense moment, then said something that surprised him completely. "I have been High Priestess for 140 years. I have guided my people through wars, plagues, and disasters. I always knew what was right and what was wrong, but you made me doubt for the first time, and I hate you for that." "I'm sorry," said quietly. "I never meant to attack your faith." "But you did attack it," said. "You showed that our most sacred belief could be changed with a machine, a device. If blindness is not truly sacred, what else might not be? You opened a door I cannot close again." She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. "But perhaps doors are meant to be opened eventually. Perhaps the divine wanted us to face this truth, and you were simply the instrument chosen. Wu says such things constantly. I still believe he is wrong about everything. But I am no longer certain that I am right, and that uncertainty will haunt me until I die." After she left, sat down heavily in his chair. Even was changing, questioning herself. Maybe there was real hope for peace after all. Finally, after 4 exhausting months of debate and compromise, the convention produced a document, the new Constitution. It had taken hundreds of difficult compromises, but it was complete. The key principles were simple but revolutionary for traditional society. Any could choose to accept or refuse the visors. Neither choice made them less. Neither choice was morally superior to the other. It was simply a personal decision. The priesthood would remain culturally important but would lose direct governmental power. Religion would become personal and voluntary, not enforced by law. Schools would teach both spiritual traditions and empirical science. Children would learn both the ancient stories and the new discoveries, then decide for themselves what to believe as adults. The blessed darkness tradition would continue for those who chose it willingly. Blind who refused the visors would still be honored and respected in their communities, but they would not be considered more sacred or spiritually superior than anyone else. Just different, making a different but equally valid choice. Read the Constitution aloud in the closing session. Her voice was quiet and tired. "I do not fully accept this document in my heart," she admitted. "I believe the traditional way is the true way blessed by the divine, but I accept that many others disagree with me. I accept that continuing the war will only destroy us all. I will follow this Constitution, though I believe parts of it are wrong." It was not enthusiastic agreement or celebration, but it was enough to end the war. The ceremony that followed was deeply emotional. Representatives from all three factions signed the Constitution with traditional ink and modern digital signatures. Families that had been divided by the war reunited, crying and embracing each other. Ships from both military fleets began returning to their home ports. Weapons were finally put away. Gave the final speech of the convention. She stood at the very center of the hall, visible to everyone in all three sections. "3 years ago I was blind," she began, her voice steady and clear. "I could not see my father's face or the stars or the colors of our beautiful world. A human engineer gave me a choice I never had before, the choice to see." She paused, and her skin flickered with colors representing many emotions. Blue for sadness at what was lost, yellow for hope about the future, green for the peace they had finally achieved. "My people nearly destroyed ourselves completely fighting over what I could see with these eyes," she continued, gesturing to her visor. "But the real blindness was never physical. It was our inability to accept that truth has many forms, that faith and knowledge can both be real and valuable. That change does not erase who we are. It reveals who we can become." She looked directly at in the observation gallery above. Park did not start a war. He offered a choice. What we did with that choice was entirely on us. And now we have finally chosen to stop fighting. We have chosen to build something new, something that honors both our ancient past and our possible future. After the ceremony ended, came to find in his workshop. "I'm going back to Prime tomorrow," she told him. "I'm going to help rebuild what the war destroyed, use what you taught me to fix what was broken." "You'll do great things," said with genuine pride. "You're smarter and braver than I ever was." "I learned from the best teacher," smiled warmly. "But I need you to know something. Thank you for everything, for giving me the choice, for believing I deserved it when my own people did not." They hugged, and then she was gone, returning to her home world to help create the new civilization that was being born from the ashes of war. Went back to his quiet workshop and his repair work. Over the following months, other species came to him with their impossible problems. Word had spread across the galaxy about the human engineer who solved puzzles that stumped everyone else. They brought broken devices, medical mysteries, and technical challenges. Worked on them all with the same careful attention he had given to Visor years ago. He never tried to be famous or important. He never wanted to be a revolutionary who changed civilizations. He just wanted to fix things and help people when he could. But somehow, that simple approach was enough to change an entire galaxy. 1 year after the convention, returned to visit Meridian 7. She had been leading a team rebuilding war-damaged cities on Prime. She looked more mature, more confident, completely comfortable with who she had become. They sat together in his familiar workshop. drinking tea and watching ships from dozens of different species move past the viewport outside. All those species trading and talking and living together in peace. "Do you ever regret it?" asked quietly. "Everything that happened because of the Visor, all the pain and death." Thought about it seriously, the deaths in the war, the families torn apart, the suffering, but also the newly sighted exploring their world with wonder, the families eventually reunited, the new constitution that gave people real freedom. "No," he said finally with certainty. "I don't regret it. People deserve choices, even when those choices are hard, even when they cause problems and conflict. That's what real freedom means." Nodded in understanding. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy slowly turn. Historians would later call this period the Schism. They would study it in schools and universities across hundreds of worlds for generations. They would debate endlessly whether had acted ethically, whether humans had wrongly imposed their values, whether the terrible cost had been worth the outcome. But for Park, it remained simpler and more personal. He had seen someone who needed help. He had the knowledge and skills to provide that help, so he did. That was all. The true human moment was not superior technology or military power. It was the simple, stubborn belief that compassion mattered more than tradition, that individuals mattered more than institutions, that everyone deserved the right to choose their own path through life, even if that path was difficult and uncertain, even if that choice threatened to burn the entire galaxy down. Even then, it was worth it. Because freedom always is.